When did you realize you were in a relationship with a psychopath? I was fresh out of a 3-year relationship, and felt like a bit of casual dating would be fun, so I decided I would give Tinder a try. I made it clear to the few people I actually matched with that I didn't actually want anything serious, just a dinner date or a pub night here and there. Around a week or so after creating my account, I matched with a really cute guy. I'll call him Pete. He had just moved to my city and also wasn't looking for anything serious, he just wanted to meet some people and see some local spots. The first night, we met up at a well-known tapas bar. I chose this place because I had a few friends that were waitresses and bar staff there, so I felt safe meeting a stranger here. He was on time, we had nice chats, and he was overall just a really cool guy. We talked about work, where we were staying now, and it turned out he was a software engineer that had only moved here a couple months ago. He was currently staying with some friends, and since I knew rent was quite pricey, I didn't question it. He asked where I live, and I told him I was lucky enough to have a nice single-bedroom apartment in the downtown area. He then offered to drop me off at home, but I said no, I'd prefer to Uber home by myself. He asked if this was because I was meeting someone else after him, and I laughed because I genuinely thought this was a joke. Turns out it was the first red flag of many that I walked past. The next time I saw Pete was 3 days later. He said he knew it was soon, but he actually couldn't stop thinking about me and he wanted to see me again. I figured what the hell, and met him at a different restaurant. I chose this one because I also knew the owner as I went to school with him. This place was much pricier and he got really annoyed that I was ordering expensive food. I couldn't understand why, since I insisted on paying for my own stuff both times we met. That night, same story, let me drop you off at home, please. Again, I respectfully declined. We were in the middle of this conversation when he got a call. He stepped away but I could still hear a fair amount. No, I think I'm gonna stay with you again. Yeah, I'm with her. Don't worry about it. Okay, I'll be home soon. I figured he was probably chatting to his roommate or maybe his mom, but I didn't ask. He comes back to our table. Please, I insist. Bad things happen to women that Uber home this late by themselves. I'd feel better if I dropped you off. Not having the energy to argue, I told him fine, and I put my address into his GPS. As soon as he got home, he messaged me and told me he'd be picking me up in the morning to go for a picnic. I told him I had cleaning to do, but he was insistent and I caved. Come 10 a.m. the next morning, and best believe he was right outside my door. As soon as I got into his car, he leaned over and tried to kiss me. Obviously I'm a little grossed out, but I didn't want to ruin the picnic so I just avoided it. We had our picnic and it was quite nice. He tried to kiss me a few more times, but I avoided it with everything in me. At around 4 p.m., I started feeling tired and told him I wanted to go home. The park we went to was an hour-and-a-half drive away from town, so Ubering would be impossible. He agreed that it was time to go so we got in his car and headed out. I fell asleep in the car on the drive back, and when I woke up he asked if we should finish the rest of the bubbly we got for mimosas up at my apartment. I told him I didn't want to, and he snapped. He raised his voice, and said something along the lines of, "What are you hiding from me? Just be honest. Why are you so desperate to keep me out of your apartment?" I was so confused that I actually couldn't speak. He dropped me off, but I could see his car across from my apartment for about half an hour before he actually left. 5 minutes after he left, he texted me saying he got home safe, and that he thought he was falling for me. Okay. What the hell? I was a little freaked out since I made it very clear I didn't want anything serious. I told him that if he felt that way we should stop hanging out because the feelings were not mutual. We didn't speak for 5 days, until he messaged me asking if I wanted to go out to an Indian restaurant he knew I'd love. Stupidly, I agreed, since I hadn't eaten yet, and I told him to text me the address so I could meet him there. Well, he was insistent on picking me up. 7 p.m. comes, he tells me he's downstairs, and as I go I see he's just standing at my gate waiting. I opened the gate, and he walked inside to meet me. "Show me which one is yours. I'd love to see how you live." Yes, that was his opening line. No hello, how are you? Nope, nothing. So now I'm naturally unsettled. I told him I was starving, and told him I just wanted to go to the restaurant, and he obliged. The dinner was about as awkward as you could expect, and midway through, he got another phone call, but didn't step away this time. I wasn't trying to eavesdrop, but he was so loud it was impossible not to. Halfway through his conversation, he turned to me, "Am I sleeping with you tonight?" What the hell? What is going on? What is he talking about? I just sat there in absolute shock and terror. "What did you just ask me?" I asked. "Are we sleeping together tonight?" "No, absolutely not," I said. "Why do you keep trying to make advances on me after I've told you many times we aren't going to be like that?" He had an angry look on his face and whispered something into his phone, then hung up. Our food arrived, and we barely spoke. I asked him why he said that earlier and he spun the story to how he just wanted to see how I live. I then said to him, very frankly, that I don't like having strangers in my apartment. The bill came and as usual, I paid for myself, he paid for himself. I told him I was going to Uber home, but he said, "What's the use? I already know where you live. Let me drop you off." By now I'd already decided that this would be the last time I saw him. I got into his car and reached back to grab my sweater that I left there earlier, but instead I saw a large open duffel bag. From what I could see, there were a crap ton of clothes, toiletries and a pillow. Now I don't personally drive or own a car, but I know my sister always has a bunch of random crap in her car. This specific set of stuff, however, did not seem random. He was dead quiet on the drive back until we got to my apartment. "Do you know how selfish you are? I've had no issue driving you around, but you don't want me to sleep with you." At this point I knew I was dealing with someone mentally deranged. I told him I've never had an issue with Ubering, and that if he was so touched, I had no issue paying him what the Ubers would have cost me. I was so fed up and done with his BS. He then received another call. I could hear another woman talking on the other side of the line. I thought it may have been an ex-girlfriend or something, but before I've even had a chance to process what was happening, he hung up and started yelling at me. "I have nowhere to go. Are you happy now? You're just an ugly spoiled brat living off mommy and daddy's money. You're just using me for a ride like I work for you." My whole body went stiff with fear. I didn't know if I was going to cry or throw up. In my head I was just planning my escape from this hellish vehicle. I went to open the doors of the vehicle, but it was locked. "Unlock the door, you're scaring me," I said. He just sat there not saying anything. I could feel my heart beating out of my chest at this point. I told him to unlock the doors again, this time being more stern, although I'm sure he could hear the tremble in my voice. He looked over at me with rage in his eyes and unlocked the door. He then screamed at me to get out of his car, and to never speak with him again. I was more than happy to oblige. I immediately jumped out of the car and ran to my apartment. I didn't look back, but I knew he was still there. I blocked Pete and I haven't seen him since. I'm still not sure what his problem was. Later on, I heard from a friend of a friend that Pete was kicked out of his last girlfriend's apartment for abusing her. I figured that was most likely her calling him during dinner to pick his stuff up. I also think I was his next victim. All I know is that he scared the hell out of me and I dodged a massive bullet. I hope I never see him again.
Whenever I go on a date with someone new, I would always let my friend know where I am at all times. This is to protect myself, as I do not know if my date will bring any harm to me. Make sure to stay safe, everybody.